Before we begin, if stories about family, dignity, betrayal, and quiet strength speak to your heart, consider subscribing to the channel. Here, we share emotional stories about people who were underestimated until life revealed who they truly were. The first time I realized my son had stopped seeing me as his father was the moment he fired the woman who helped me button my own shirt. "We will not be needing you anymore, Naomi." Travis said it casually from the kitchen doorway, while holding a cold cup of coffee in one hand and his truck keys in the other, like he was canceling cable service. Naomi Keller stood still beside the sink, her blue medication notebook pressed against her chest. Outside, gray Oregon rain tapped softly against the windows of the old house I had spent 38 years paying for. I tried to speak. My mouth still moved slower than my thoughts after the stroke 3 months earlier. "Travis," I managed, but the word came out crooked and weak. My son did not even look at me. "Dad, this is for the best," he said. "Melissa can handle things now." Melissa stayed silent near the stove, wiping down already clean countertops with nervous little circles. Naomi looked at me instead, not with pity. That was what made her different. Everyone else looked at me like I was already halfway gone. Naomi still waited for me to finish sentences, still asked me what I wanted for breakfast, still handed me tools from the garage shelf when my left hand shook too badly to hold anything steady. "Walter still needs daily therapy exercises," Naomi said carefully. "Skipping those right now could set his recovery back." Travis let out a tired breath through his nose. "We appreciate everything you did, but insurance stopped covering this weeks ago." There it was. Money. Every conversation in this house eventually crawled back to money. The mortgage, the hospital bills, Owen's school expenses, Melissa picking up extra weekend shifts at the dental office, Travis working late routes for a shipping company that kept threatening layoffs. I knew all of it. I heard more than they realized from this chair in the living room. But something about the way Travis avoided. Looking at Naomi made my stomach tighten. Naomi slowly placed the blue notebook beside the fruit bowl on the counter. "Your 4 o'clock medication is already organized through Sunday," she told Melissa softly. Then she walked over to me. She adjusted the blanket covering my legs the same way she always did before physical therapy sessions. "Small movements, quiet dignity. Keep using the walker even inside the house," she said. "Do not try stairs alone." I nodded once. My throat burned with embarrassment because I could not even stand to walk her to the door. Naomi gave me one final look before leaving. The front door closed softly behind her. No yelling, no dramatic scene. Somehow that made it worse. Travis immediately grabbed the medication notebook and tossed it into a kitchen drawer like it was junk mail. "We will figure this out," he muttered. Then he disappeared upstairs to shower before work. A few minutes later, Melissa reheated canned soup for me in the microwave. She forgot the low-sodium crackers Naomi always brought with it because swallowing had become harder after the stroke. I stared toward the rain-covered window while the microwave hummed. In the reflection of the glass, I barely recognized the old man sitting there with one weak arm curled uselessly against his chest. 3 months earlier, I had still been rebuilding carburetors in my garage near the harbor. Now my own son had decided who was allowed to take care of me. And for the first time since the stroke, I could not shake the feeling that Naomi had not really been fired because of money. That night the house sounded different without Naomi in it. I noticed things I'd stopped noticing before. The refrigerator buzzing too loudly in the kitchen. The old heater rattling inside the hallway vent. The freight train passing somewhere near the harbor after midnight. Naomi used to leave a small lamp on beside my chair because she knew waking up confused after the stroke made me panic. That night, the living room stayed dark. Around 1 in the morning, my left leg cramped hard enough to wake me. I reached for the bell Naomi normally kept clipped beside my blanket, forgetting for a second she was gone. The bell was not there anymore. I sat alone listening to rain slide down the gutters outside, while pain crawled through my calf like a tightening wire. It took me nearly 10 minutes to push myself upright using the arm of the chair and the metal walker beside me. Every movement still felt humiliating. Before the stroke, I had spent 40 years lifting transmissions with my bare hands. Now, crossing my own living room felt like climbing a mountain. I shuffled slowly toward the kitchen for water, dragging my weaker foot across the hardwood floor. Halfway down the hallway, I heard voices upstairs. Travis and Melissa. At first, I meant to turn around. Then, I heard Naomi's name. "You should have waited another month," Melissa whispered sharply. She was handling everything. "That was the problem," Travis replied. "She was getting too comfortable around him." I stopped moving. My hand tightened around the walker handle. There was a long silence before Melissa spoke again. "Do you really think she noticed?" Travis lowered his voice so much I almost missed the next words. "If she finds those papers, we are screwed." "Papers?" My chest tightened, so suddenly I thought something was wrong with my heart again. I stood frozen there beneath the hallway light while rain tapped softly against the roof. Papers about what? The mortgage? Insurance? Medical bills? I heard Melissa sigh tiredly. "I cannot keep living like this, Travis. We are drowning." "I know." His voice cracked in a way I had not heard since he was a teenager. "But once the refinance clears, everything changes." Refinance. The word echoed in my head. A cold feeling settled into my stomach. The old house had been fully paid off 6 years earlier after I sold my garage business to my former mechanic partner. I remembered the exact day I mailed the final payment. I had taken myself to breakfast at Rosie's Diner afterward and ordered blueberry pancakes to celebrate. So why would there be a refinance now? Upstairs, the bedroom floor creaked softly. "Just keep him calm until this is done," Travis muttered. "Then we can figure out the rest." Him. Not Dad. Not my father. Just him. Like I was already becoming an object. They needed to manage. I backed away before they could hear the walker squeak beneath me. My hand shook so badly the water glass nearly slipped when I reached the kitchen sink. Sitting on the counter beside the microwave was Naomi's blue medication notebook. Travis must have forgotten to throw it away completely. I stared at it for a long moment. Then slowly, carefully, I opened it. Inside were pages filled with medication times, blood pressure numbers, therapy reminders written in neat blue ink. But near the back, folded between 2 pages, was something else. A yellow sticky note with Naomi's handwriting. "Walter," it read, "something about the house paperwork does not feel right. Please be careful who signs for you." The next morning, Travis acted like nothing had happened. That was somehow worse than if he had yelled at me. He moved around the kitchen in his gray work hoodie, packing coffee into a travel mug while scrolling through emails on his phone. Melissa rushed between the toaster and the hallway mirror, trying to get ready for work. The whole house carried this strained, overworked rhythm now, like everyone was permanently 10 minutes late and 1 paycheck behind disaster. I kept Naomi's sticky note hidden inside my flannel shirt pocket while pretending to focus on breakfast. My oatmeal had gone cold before Melissa noticed I had barely touched it. "You need to eat something, Walter," she said distractedly without looking at me. "Your medication upsets your stomach otherwise." Medication. Right on cue. Travis opened the kitchen drawer and frowned down at Naomi's notebook. "Did Dad already take his blood pressure pills?" he asked. Melissa froze for half a second. "I thought you did it." They both looked at each other. A silence settled over the room. Small. Awkward. Exhausted. Before the stroke, nobody in this house would have forgotten something that important. Naomi never forgot. Travis rubbed his face hard. "I have to leave in 5 minutes." "Well, I have patients waiting too," Melissa snapped back quietly. Then both of them stopped talking because Owen had just walked into the kitchen wearing headphones around his neck and carrying his backpack. He glanced at me first, not them. "Morning, Grandpa." His voice softened a little when he saw the untouched oatmeal. He walked over and reheated it in the microwave without asking. Melissa immediately looked guilty. Travis looked irritated by the guilt itself. That was new. I started noticing these tiny fractures now. Hairline cracks running through everything in this house. Owen placed the warm bowl carefully in front of me. "You want cinnamon?" he asked. I nodded once. "Thanks, kid." The words still sounded rough coming out of my mouth, but at least they sounded like words. Travis checked his phone again and muttered a curse under his breath. "What now?" Melissa asked. Dispatch cut overtime again. He grabbed his jacket from the chair. 2 drivers got laid off yesterday. Nobody spoke after that. For the first time since my stroke, I saw something underneath Travis's anger. Fear. Real fear. The kind that keeps people awake at night staring at unpaid bills. He noticed me watching him and immediately hardened again. Dad, try not to move around today unless someone's here. Someone. Not him specifically. Just someone. 20 minutes later, the house emptied out except for me and Owen, who was waiting for the school bus. Rain drifted sideways outside the kitchen window while he quietly washed his cereal bowl. Then, without turning around, he asked, "Did my dad really need to fire Naomi?" The question caught me off guard. I took longer than normal to answer. Do not know. Owen dried his hands slowly. Mom and Dad have been fighting about money for months. He lowered his voice. I heard Mom say the bank called again. The bank. My chest tightened. Owen finally looked at me directly. Grandpa, are they selling the house? Before I could answer, his school bus pulled up outside with a hiss of brakes. Owen grabbed his backpack, but paused at the door first. Naomi said your therapy matters, he said quietly. You should not stop doing it. Then he left me standing alone in the kitchen with the rain outside and Naomi's hidden note burning like a live wire in my pocket. An hour later, I decided to do something I had not attempted since coming home from the hospital. I was going down to the garage. Getting down to the garage took me nearly 20 minutes. Before the stroke, I used to walk there every morning with a coffee thermos in one hand and a wrench in the other. Back then, the garage smelled like motor oil, sawdust, and salt air drifting in from the harbor 2 blocks away. Men from all over town brought me their trucks because they trusted my work. Now I had to stop twice just to catch my breath crossing my own backyard. The rain had finally eased into a cold mist by the time I reached the side door. My left hand barely cooperated with the key. When the lock finally clicked open, the familiar smell hit me, so hard it almost hurt. Oil, rushed, old wood, memory. Everything inside looked smaller than I remembered. The red tool, chest near the wall. The fishing calendar from 3 years ago, still hanging crooked above the workbench. The radio Owen and I used to fix together every summer, sitting untouched beneath a dusty tarp. I stood there gripping my walker while grief rolled through me unexpectedly. Not grief for the stroke. Grief for the version of myself that used to belong in this room. Then I noticed the filing cabinet near the back workbench had been left slightly open. Travis never touched my garage unless he needed something. Slowly, carefully, I made my way over. Inside were stacks of papers shoved together without organization. Utility bills, insurance notices, final hospital statements with frightening numbers printed in bold black ink. $42,000 after insurance adjustments. I stared at the page until the numbers blurred. No wonder they were panicking. My therapy alone cost more each month than Travis had probably saved in years. Then I found the mortgage documents. My stomach dropped immediately. There was in clean official print. Home equity refinance application. Loan amount, $280,000. Collateral, Hensley property. My property. The house had been fully paid off for years. My eyes moved lower down the page until they landed on the signature section. Walter Hensley. My name. My signature. Except it was wrong. Not completely fake. Worse. It looked copied. Scanned. From an older document, maybe. My breathing turned shallow. I flipped through more pages with shaking fingers. Payment delinquency warnings. Notices from a bank in Portland. Final review pending authorization. Then another page caught my eye. Long-term care facility estimates. Monthly costs circled in red pen. $7,000 a month. Beside it, someone had written in Travis's handwriting, "Sell house before savings disappear." I sat down hard on the old stool near the workbench because my legs suddenly felt weak. Nursing home. That was the plan. Not recovery. Not getting me back on my feet. Managing me until they could move me somewhere cheaper and sell the house. Outside, a truck rumbled past toward the harbor. Somewhere nearby, a seagull cried over the water. Ordinary sounds. Ordinary day. Yet nothing inside me felt ordinary anymore. I kept staring at the paperwork spread across the workbench while pieces slowly connected themselves in my head. Firing Naomi. Hiding the refinance. talking about me like I was temporary. Then I heard the back gate slam outside. Panic shot through me. I shoved the papers back into the cabinet too quickly, nearly dropping the walker. A second later, Owen stepped into the garage, still wearing his school backpack. He froze when he saw me, standing there alone. "Grandpa," he said carefully, "what are you doing down here?" I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could, Owen's eyes drifted toward the half-hidden mortgage papers sticking out of the cabinet drawer. And his expression changed. Owen did not say anything at first. He just stared at the papers sticking out of the filing cabinet while the old fluorescent light hummed softly above us. Then he slowly set his backpack down on the concrete floor. "Those are bank papers," he said quietly. I watched him carefully. 16 years old, taller than his father already, but still carrying that nervous habit of rubbing the back of his neck whenever something felt wrong. "Grandpa, why are you looking at those?" My throat tightened. I was not ready to tell him everything. Not yet. Instead, I reached for one of the pages and tapped the signature line with my finger. Owen stepped closer. His eyes moved across the document before narrowing slightly. "That does not look like your handwriting now. Smart kid. Too smart." I looked away toward the workbench covered in rusted sockets and old spark plugs. "Not now," I admitted slowly. "Old signature." Owen swallowed hard. The garage suddenly felt much colder. "Did Dad do something?" Before I could answer, we both heard tires crunching into the gravel driveway outside. Travis was home early. Panic flashed across Owen's face. Without thinking, he grabbed the stack of papers and shoved them into an old parts box beneath the workbench just seconds before the garage door opened. Travis stepped inside, still wearing his reflective work vest. His expression immediately darkened when he saw me standing there. "Jesus, Daddy." He walked over fast. "What are you doing down here alone?" He looked angry, but underneath it I could hear fear. Real fear, like he had walked in expecting disaster. He just wanted to see the garage. Owen said quickly before I could answer. Travis exhaled hard through his nose and ran both hands over his face. He looked exhausted. Deep lines had started forming around his mouth lately. "You could have fallen," he muttered. Then his eyes drifted around the room. Searching, checking. "You should not be down here anymore." That sentence hit harder than he probably intended. Not because he yelled it, because he said it like a fact. Like the garage no longer belonged to me either. Travis grabbed the walker handles and turned me toward the house. "Come on." On the way back inside, I noticed a white envelope sticking out of his jacket pocket. Red letters stamped across the front. "Final notice." He caught me looking and quickly shoved the envelope deeper inside his coat. That night things got worse. Melissa came home late from work carrying 2 grocery bags and a pharmacy receipt hanging from one finger. She dropped everything on the counter harder than necessary. "The insurance rejected another therapy claim," she announced. "We owe $1,800 now." Travis stayed silent at the kitchen table, staring at his laptop screen. "Say something," Melissa snapped. "I'm trying to. Figure this out." "Figure what out?" she shot back. "Because from where I'm standing, we are drowning." Their voices rose while they forgot I was sitting 10 feet away in the living room. "Maybe if your father stopped insisting on staying here." Melissa stopped herself too late. The silence afterward felt ugly. She looked toward me immediately, ashamed. Travis shut the laptop hard enough to make me flinch. "Do not do that," he warned her quietly. "I'm serious, Travis. We cannot survive this much longer." Then Owen walked into the kitchen and everything changed. "Maybe Grandpa is not the problem," he said suddenly. Everyone froze. Even me. Owen looked directly at his father for the first time in weeks. "Maybe lying about the house is the problem." The room went completely still. For a second, nobody moved. The kitchen clock ticked loudly above the refrigerator, while Owen stood there breathing hard like he regretted speaking the moment the words left his mouth. Melissa looked horrified. Travis slowly rose from his chair. "What did you just say?" His voice stayed low, but I recognized the warning inside it. Owen swallowed and glanced toward me before answering. I saw the papers in the garage. Travis's face drained of color so fast it frightened me. Not anger first. Fear. Pure fear. "You went through my things?" he asked sharply, looking at me now instead of Owen. I gripped the armrest of my chair. House, mine too. The sentence came out rough and uneven, but clear enough. Travis stared at me for a long moment. Something tired flickered across his face before he finally sat back down again. Melissa lowered herself slowly into the kitchen chair beside him, rubbing her forehead with both hands like the exhaustion had finally reached her bones. Nobody yelled. That was the strange part. The fight seemed to collapse under its own weight before it could explode. Travis leaned forward with both elbows on the table. "You think I wanted this?" he asked quietly. "You think any of this was part of some plan?" Owen stayed standing near the hallway, tense and defensive. "Then why hide it?" Travis laughed once under his breath, bitter and humorless. "Because every month, there's another bill." He pointed toward the stack of pharmacy receipts on the counter. $3,000 for rehab, $1,200 for medication. Insurance rejecting claims every week. Mom picking up double shifts. Me losing overtime. He looked at me directly now. I was trying to keep us in this house. I listened without speaking. Part of me wanted to hate him completely. It would have been easier, but I could see the dark circles under his eyes. The cracked skin on his hands from loading freight in freezing weather. The pressure bending him little by little every day. Melissa finally spoke, her voice quieter than before. "We fell behind after your hospital stay." She looked ashamed admitting it aloud. Then Travis refinanced the house to stop foreclosure proceedings. My chest tightened. Foreclosure. Not just debt. The bank had already started coming after the house. Owen looked stunned. "You could lose the house." Melissa nodded weakly. "We almost already did." Travis rubbed both hands over his face again. "The refinance was supposed to buy us time until I got promoted at work. But the promotion never came," Melissa whispered. Nobody spoke after that. Outside, somewhere down the street, kids shouted while playing basketball near the church parking lot. Ordinary life continuing while our family sat breaking apart around a kitchen table. Then Travis said the one thing that changed everything for me. "Naomi figured it out." I looked up sharply. Travis avoided my eyes. She started asking questions about signatures and bank calls. He swallowed hard. I could not risk her interfering before the loan finalized. There it was. Not cruelty for the sake of cruelty. Desperation. Cowardly desperation. My throat burned. "So, fire her." Travis's jaw tightened. "Dad, if the bank saw missed payments while your medical care kept increasing, they would have forced a sale months ago." Melissa suddenly stood up from the table and grabbed her purse. "I cannot do this tonight." Her voice cracked for the first time. "I spent all afternoon arguing with billing departments, and now Owen thinks we are criminals." She walked into the bedroom and slammed the door hard enough to shake the hallway picture frames. Owen looked at his father differently now. Not hatred. Worse. Disappointment. Travis noticed it too. "I was trying to protect this family," he muttered. Owen shook his head slowly. "You stopped talking to Grandpa like he was part of the family." That sentence landed harder than anything else said all night. Travis opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. The tension inside the house did not disappear after that conversation. It hardened, like wet cement finally setting into place. The next few days became painfully polite. Travis stopped raising his voice entirely. Melissa avoided eye contact whenever she handed me medication or reheated leftovers. Even Owen seemed quieter, like he regretted pulling the truth into the open because now nobody knew how to live around it. But the biggest change came from Travis himself. He started treating me less like a father and more like a liability that needed monitoring. The first time I noticed, it was Tuesday morning when he took my truck keys off the hallway hook. The old Ford had not moved since my stroke, but seeing him slip the keys into his pocket without asking still hit something deep inside me. "Insurance is suspended on it anyway," he said casually when he noticed me watching. "No point leaving keys around. No point. Like the truck, the garage, even my routines belong to another life already finished." Later that afternoon, he installed a cheap motion sensor beside the back door leading to the garage. "Just in case Dad tries going down there alone again," he told Melissa. He sat right in front of me while tightening screws in my own wall. I sat in silence, pretending to watch television while humiliation crawled slowly through my chest. Not explosive humiliation. Worse. The quiet kind that makes a man feel erased one practical decision at a time. That night, I overheard Melissa crying softly in the laundry room while folding towels. "I cannot keep pretending this is normal anymore," she whispered. Travis answered in a tired voice. "What do you want me to do? Tell the bank we changed our minds. I want one day where nobody looks terrified all the time." There. Marriage sounded exhausted now. Not hateful, just worn down by fear and money and responsibility. The next morning brought another problem. I woke up dizzy before breakfast. My left hand felt unusually numb, even for me. Melissa panicked enough to call the clinic hotline while Travis checked my blood pressure with shaking hands. The nurse on the phone asked a simple question that froze the entire kitchen. Has he been consistently following his rehabilitation exercises? Silence. Travis looked at Melissa. Melissa looked at the floor. Nobody had been helping me properly since Naomi left. The nurse recommended immediate evaluation at the urgent care center near the harbor. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and stale popcorn from an old vending machine near the entrance. A television mounted in the corner played daytime court, shows nobody was really watching. Travis filled out paperwork while I sat beside him in a wheelchair, feeling strangely detached from my own life. Then the receptionist asked him, "Are you his legal medical representative?" Travis hesitated only half a second before answering yes. Something inside me tightened instantly, because technically he was not. I had never signed power of attorney papers after the stroke. The receptionist handed him forms without questioning it further. My stomach turned cold. During the evaluation, the doctor explained my condition had worsened slightly because my therapy schedule had been interrupted too abruptly. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to slow recovery significantly. Stroke rehabilitation depends heavily on consistency, the doctor said firmly while typing notes into a tablet. At his age, setbacks become harder to recover from. Travis nodded silently like a man being sentenced. On the drive home, nobody spoke much. Halfway back, we stopped at a red light beside the marina. Fishing boats rocked gently against the docks while workers unloaded crates of silver salmon into trucks. Real people working real jobs, moving forward with their lives. Travis suddenly gripped the steering wheel tighter and said quietly, "If things keep getting worse medically, we may not have a choice anymore." I turned slowly toward him. Choice. He stared straight ahead at the traffic light. About assisted living. The light turned green before I could answer. But for the first time since my stroke, I realized my son was already preparing himself emotionally to let someone else take me away. 2 days later, Travis took me to tour an assisted living facility 30 miles north of town. He framed it like a practical conversation. "Just looking at options," he kept saying while driving along the coastal highway. But I knew better. People do not tour places they have already emotionally rejected. The building itself was clean. Quiet. Too quiet. Beige walls. Artificial plants near the reception desk. A television in the common room playing an old game show while half a dozen elderly residents stared at it without expression. A nurse with a cheerful voice showed us around and explained meal plans, medication management, transportation services. She spoke directly to Travis most of the time, even though I was sitting right there. Would he require mobility assistance during bathing? Has his cognitive decline accelerated since the stroke? Would he adjust better in shared or private housing? Him. He. Like I was a damaged appliance being traded in. I answered when I could, but my slower speech only seemed to encourage everyone to talk around me instead of with me. By the time we reached the cafeteria area, exhaustion had settled deep into my chest. Then the nurse smiled politely and said something that cracked whatever patience I still had left. Most families feel relieved once their loved one transitions here. Relieved. I looked at Travis immediately. He looked away. Not defensive. Guilty. That hurt worse. On the drive home, neither of us spoke for nearly 20 minutes. The highway curved beside gray ocean cliffs while fishing boats drifted near the horizon below. Finally, I forced the words out. "You already decided." Travis tightened both hands on the steering wheel. "Dad, you decided." He let out a frustrated breath. "What do you want me to do?" The question came out harsher than he intended. I am drowning here. His voice rose for the first time in weeks. I am working 60 hours when they actually give me shifts. Melissa is barely sleeping. The bank calls every day. Every single day. He hit the steering wheel once with the heel of his hand. And now your rehab is getting worse because we cannot manage it properly anymore. I stared out the passenger window at the ocean. So, send me away. That is not fair. Fair. I turned toward him slowly. My speech became rougher whenever emotions pushed too hard against it. You use my house, my name, then put me somewhere else. Travis looked like I had slapped him. You think I wanted your life to turn into this? He shot back. You think I wanted to spend every night wondering if we lose the house next month? His voice cracked suddenly. I was scared, Dad. Silence filled the truck after that. Heavy silence. Honest silence. For the first time since the stroke, I saw my son not as a villain, but as a frightened, middle-aged man collapsing under responsibilities too big for him. And maybe that was the cruelest part, because it would have been easier if he had simply been cruel. When we finally pulled into the driveway, Melissa was standing outside waiting for us with her arms folded tightly against the cold wind. One look at our faces, and she knew something had gone wrong. What happened? She asked carefully. Travis got out without answering. Nothing happened, he muttered while heading toward the house. Melissa looked at me next. Walter, before I could respond, Travis suddenly turned around from the porch. The facility has an opening next month, he said flatly. Owen had just stepped outside behind his mother in time to hear it. His face immediately hardened. You are seriously doing this? Travis looked exhausted, now more than angry. I do not have another option. You did. Owen fired back. You fired her. Travis froze. Melissa closed her eyes briefly like she could already feel another fight coming. Owen pointed toward me. Grandpa was actually getting better with Naomi here. Enough, Travis snapped. No, it is not enough anymore. Owen's voice shook now. You keep acting like Grandpa ruined your life when all he did was get sick. The words hit the porch like shattered glass. Travis stood completely still. Then quietly, almost under his breath, he said something that changed the entire atmosphere of the family. You have no idea what I already gave up trying to save this family. After that night, the house stopped pretending to be normal. Nobody said it out loud, but something had cracked beyond repair on that front porch. Travis and Owen barely spoke to each other anymore unless absolutely necessary. Melissa moved between them like someone tried to keep two electrical wires from touching. And me? I started noticing how carefully everyone avoided using certain words around me now. Facility, foreclosure, loan, like silence itself could still save us. It could not. 3 days later, the bank called during dinner. Not Travis's cell phone this time. The house line. The old cordless phone mounted beside the refrigerator that had hung there since my wife was alive. Melissa answered while carrying a casserole dish to the table. I watched the color drain slowly from her face as she listened. No, we already submitted the documents, she said quietly. Travis has stopped eating immediately. Owen looked down at his plate. Another extension? Melissa repeated. That is all we have left. The kitchen went silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. She hung up carefully before turning toward Travis. They denied the temporary hardship adjustment. Travis closed his eyes for a second. Just 1 second. But I saw it. The exhaustion. The defeat. How long? He asked. Melissa swallowed hard. 31 days. Nobody touched dinner after that. Later that evening, I overheard Travis in the garage speaking to someone on speakerphone. Understand the property value, he said tightly. I just need more time. A pause. Then quieter. No, moving my father out will not happen overnight. I sat in the dark living room listening to my son negotiate the collapse of our family one phone call at a time. The next morning things got worse. Owen refused to leave for school after Travis mentioned selling the garage separately from the house. Grandpa built that place. Owen snapped. It is not just storage. Travis looked like he had not slept at all. It is an old building falling apart behind a mortgage we cannot afford. You mean behind your mortgage? That did it. Travis slammed his coffee mug down hard enough to splash across the counter. You think this is easy for me? He shouted. You think I enjoy waking up every morning wondering how to stop this family from sinking? Owen stood his ground for once. You stopped trying to save the family when you started hiding things from Grandpa. Travis laughed bitterly. Your grandfather spent his entire life acting like feelings were weakness. Now suddenly I am the bad guy because I made hard choices. The words hit me harder than he realized because part of them were true. I had not been an easy father. I worked long hours, missed school events, taught my son how to rebuild engines, but never really taught him how to talk about fear or failure. Maybe now he only knew how to survive problems by burying them. Owen looked stunned, hearing his father say it aloud. So this is Grandpa's fault too? No, Travis said immediately, but the damage was already done. Melissa stepped between them. Stop it, both of you. Her voice shook now. This house feels like people waiting for a fire to start. Nobody answered because she was right. That afternoon, while Melissa worked and Owen stayed at school late for basketball practice, Travis surprised me by sitting down across from my chair in the living room. No television, no distractions, just us. He rubbed his hands together for a long time before finally speaking. I need you to understand something. I stayed quiet. If the bank takes this house, he said carefully, we all lose everything. He looked older than 42 in that moment. Worn down, cornered. I know you think I betrayed you. He swallowed hard. But I'm terrified all the time, Dad. I looked at him for a long moment before answering slowly. Being scared does not excuse lying. Travis lowered his eyes immediately. And for the first time since the stroke, neither of us knew how to bridge the distance sitting between us. The next week, nobody made speeches about fixing the family. Life just became heavier in practical ways. Travis started leaving the house before sunrise and coming home after dark, trying to pick up extra delivery routes from drivers who called in sick. Melissa began selling things quietly online at night after work. I noticed framed decorations disappearing from shelves. The second television vanished from the guest room. One evening, I watched her photograph an old necklace under the kitchen light while thinking nobody noticed. Owen picked up shifts bussing tables at a seafood diner near the marina without telling his parents at first. I found out because he came home smelling like fryer grease and carrying rolled-up dollar bills in his backpack. Nobody talked about these changes directly. They just happened because the bills kept coming anyway. But the biggest change happened with me. 2 mornings after our conversation, I woke up before everyone else and forced myself through Naomi's old therapy exercises alone in the living room. Slow leg lifts, grip exercises, standing without using both hands. Every movement hurt. My left side still lagged behind my brain like a rusted machine struggling to restart. Sweat soaked through my shirt within 20 minutes. Halfway through, I nearly collapsed trying to balance near the couch. That was when Travis walked in unexpectedly from the hallway. He froze seeing me standing there gripping the back of a dining chair with shaking legs. Neither of us spoke at first. Then, quietly, he walked over and steadied the chair without making a big deal out of it. Not pity, not control, just help. I hated needing it, but I did not pull away. The next morning, he printed out a therapy schedule from the clinic website and taped it beside the refrigerator. No speech, no apology, just times and exercises written in black ink. Melissa started organizing my medication again, properly using the plastic pill sorter Naomi left behind. Owen began eating dinner in the living room with me instead of hiding upstairs. Small things, uneven things, but real. Still, the pressure outside the family kept tightening. One afternoon, a tow truck arrived to repossess Travis's fishing boat trailer from the driveway because he had missed too many payments. The entire neighborhood saw it happen. I watched from the front window while Travis argued quietly with the driver, trying not to make a scene. He finally handed over the keys without looking up once. After the truck pulled away, he stood alone in the driveway, staring at the empty spot where the trailer had been. That trailer used to carry the small aluminum fishing boat we took out together when Owen was younger. Another piece of normal life gone. That evening, Travis skipped dinner entirely and sat at the kitchen table surrounded by paperwork. I rolled myself in slowly and noticed foreclosure notices, overdue medical balances, and handwritten calculations spread everywhere. He looked exhausted beyond words. How bad? I asked carefully. He rubbed both hands down his face before answering. If the bank does not approve another extension, they start legal proceedings next month. I stared at the paperwork for a long moment. Then slowly, painfully, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the small brass key to the locked cabinet inside the garage office. Travis frowned. "What is that?" "Safe box," I answered. "Garage office." His expression shifted slightly. Confused. "Dad, what are you talking about?" I swallowed hard before continuing. "Your mother and I kept emergency savings." The room went completely still. Travis looked at me like he had stopped breathing for a second. "There's money?" he asked carefully. "Not enough. Save everything." I shook my head slowly. "But enough by time." Travis stared at the little brass key in my hand without touching it. Then finally, after a very long silence, he whispered something I had not heard from my son in years. "Why did you not tell me sooner?" I looked directly at him. "Because I needed to know if you still saw me as your father or just the house." The emergency savings turned out to be smaller than Travis hoped and larger than Melissa expected. $12,000 in cash bonds and an old savings account your grandmother and I had opened decades earlier after the garage finally started making steady money. Enough to stop immediate foreclosure proceedings if used carefully. Not enough to erase the damage already done. The next morning, Travis and I drove to the bank together. That alone felt strange. We had spent weeks trapped in the same house, barely able to look at each other honestly. And now suddenly we were sitting side by side in his truck, carrying paperwork and a metal lockbox between us. Neither of us knew how to act normal. At the bank, the loan officer spoke in that calm, professional tone people use when discussing disasters politely. The emergency payment bought another 90 days before legal action. 90 days to stabilize income, restructure debt, or sell assets voluntarily before the bank took control. Walking back through the parking lot, Travis looked physically lighter for the first time in months. But relief did not magically fix what sat between us. When he reached to help me step off the curb, I instinctively pulled my arm away. His hand froze awkwardly in the air before dropping back to his side. Small moment. Big damage. Back at home, Melissa cried quietly in the kitchen after hearing the extension was approved. Not dramatic sobbing, just exhausted tears while unloading groceries because survival had consumed her for so long she no longer knew how to relax. Owen seemed cautiously hopeful too. He started helping me with therapy exercises after school using Naomi's notebook. Sometimes he read the instructions wrong or counted too fast, but he tried. One afternoon, he even cleaned part of the garage with me, sorting rusted tools into old coffee cans while classic rock played softly from the repaired radio. For almost an hour, things felt close to normal again. Then reality pushed back. 2 days later, Travis came home furious after learning the promotion he had counted on was officially canceled because the company was cutting regional management positions entirely. He walked through the front door, carrying a cardboard box of personal desk items they had cleared out from the office. "They gave my route to a guy making $6 less an hour," he muttered while dropping the box onto the kitchen counter. Melissa immediately started asking practical questions about severance pay and health insurance, which only made him angrier. "Can I breathe for 1 minute? Before we turn this into another disaster meeting?" he snapped. The whole house tightened again instantly. Fear returned so fast, it almost felt familiar. That night, I made a mistake too. I overheard Travis arguing with creditors on the phone in the garage and assumed he was hiding more financial problems again. Old distrust flared before I could stop it. The next morning, I quietly asked Owen to bring me the refinance paperwork from the garage cabinet while Travis slept after a double shift. Owen hesitated. "Grandpa, need see numbers," I insisted. He finally brought the folder, but Travis caught us halfway through reading it at the dining table. The hurt on his face came before the anger. "Seriously?" he said softly. "After everything?" I opened my mouth to explain, but the truth sounded ugly even inside my own head. I still did not trust him completely. Maybe I wanted proof that my caution had been justified all along. Travis shook his head slowly. "You think I'm lying every time I walk into a room now?" "You lied before," I answered. He flinched like the words physically landed. Then he grabbed the folder back too hard, sending loose papers sliding across the floor. Owen bent awkwardly to pick them up while neither of us moved to help. Nobody yelled. Nobody stormed out. But that quiet disappointment hanging in the room afterward felt heavier than any fight we had before. Healing had started in small ways. But trust, I realized, did not return just because people finally told the truth once. The next few weeks settled into something quieter. Not peace exactly. More like a family learning how to move around old wounds without pressing on them too hard. Travis stopped talking about assisted living after that argument over the paperwork, but the fear behind the idea never completely disappeared. I could still see it every time another bill arrived in the mail or another unknown number flashed across his phone screen. Some nights he sat at the kitchen table long after everyone else went to bed, staring at spreadsheets and overdue notices with his reading glasses slipping down his nose. But he also started doing things he did not have to do anymore. Real things. One Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of tools clanking outside and found him in the garage replacing the warped side panel on my old workbench. He had probably noticed me struggling to balance against it during therapy. He never mentioned it directly, just measured the wood twice, cut carefully, and bolted the new panel into place while classic rock played softly from the radio Owen repaired. I stood there with my walker watching him work. For the first time in years, he looked a little like the teenage boy who used to hand me socket wrenches after school. "You mounted it crooked," I muttered automatically. Travis glanced up before realizing I was joking. A surprised laugh escaped him. Small moment, but real. Owen started joining us in the garage most afternoons after school. Sometimes he worked on homework at the old desk while Travis and I sorted through shelves filled with decades of forgotten parts. We sold scrap metal and used tools, even an old transmission lift that had not worked in years. Not enough money to solve anything major, but enough to keep contributing. Enough to feel useful again. One afternoon, Melissa came home carrying grocery bags and stopped in the garage doorway, watching the three of us argue over whether an old carburetor could still be rebuilt. She stayed there quietly for a long moment before saying, "I forgot what this place sounded like when people were actually talking in it." Nobody answered because none of us really knew what to say to that. The healing stayed uneven. Travis still got defensive whenever finances came up. I still checked paperwork more carefully than before. Melissa still cried sometimes when she thought nobody could hear her in the laundry room. But little things started changing. One evening, the four of us ate takeout fish and chips at the kitchen table because nobody had energy to cook. Owen kept stealing fries off Travis's plate until Travis finally shoved the whole carton toward him without complaint. Melissa laughed for the first time in weeks. Actual laughter, not forced politeness. Another night, Travis admitted he had called Naomi 2 days earlier. My chest tightened immediately. "What?" I asked carefully. "To apologize," he answered. "Not because I wanted her back. Because she deserved one." That mattered more than he probably realized. "What'd she say?" Travis leaned against the counter thinking for a second. "She told me fear makes people confuse control with responsibility." He gave a tired smile. "Then she told me to stop acting like I was the only person carrying this family." A week later, I made a choice nobody asked me to make. I signed paperwork giving Travis limited financial authorization over specific medical accounts only. Not the house. Not everything. Just enough to stop forcing him to juggle bills illegally in emergencies. My hand shook badly signing the forms. Trust still scare me now. But when I slid the papers across the table toward him, Travis did not grab them immediately. He looked at me carefully first. "You sure?" he asked quietly. I nodded once. "Trust not automatic anymore," I told him, "but maybe rebuilt." Travis swallowed hard and folded the paperwork carefully instead of rushing to file it away. And for the first time since my stroke, helping each other no longer felt like ownership or obligation. It felt like something all of us were choosing day by day, even while scared of losing it again. By early spring, the house still carried scars, but it no longer felt like a place waiting to collapse. The foreclosure threat had not magically disappeared. Travis still worked too many hours. Melissa still checked the mailbox with visible anxiety whenever official envelopes arrived. I still woke some mornings with stiffness, so bad I needed several minutes before standing. Recovery, financial or physical, turned out to be slower than anybody wanted. But life had started moving again instead of just surviving. The biggest difference was the garage. Little by little, it became part of the family again instead of a storage room full of memories nobody touched. Owen spent weekends there learning repairs for me the same way Travis once had. Only now, I tried harder to explain things patiently instead of barking instructions like I used to years ago. Some habits were difficult to break. Sometimes I still snapped when frustration hit my speech or my weaker hand failed me. Sometimes Owen got embarrassed and impatient the way teenagers do. But he always came back the next day anyway. One Saturday afternoon, Travis rolled up the garage door and backed his truck inside, carrying a used lawnmower someone from work wanted repaired cheap. Thought maybe we could flip it, he said awkwardly. If it runs. I looked at the machine, then at him. Months earlier, he would have sold the garage before asking for help inside it. That mattered. We spent nearly 3 hours rebuilding the carburetor together while Owen handed us tools, and Melissa sat nearby, entering online resale listings on her phone. Nobody called it healing. It was just a family trying something instead of hiding from each other. The mower sold 2 days later. Then another repair job came through. Then another. Nothing dramatic. Just enough extra money to matter. Enough to remind Travis he did not have to carry every problem alone by controlling everyone around him. One evening after dinner, I found him standing alone in the backyard staring at the old motion sensor still attached near the garage door. The same one he installed when he treated me like a risk that needed managing. Without saying anything, he grabbed a screwdriver from his pocket and removed it from the wall. He turned it over once in his hand before tossing it into the trash bin beside the fence. Small action, big meaning. A few weeks later, I finally saw Naomi again. She stopped by the pharmacy while Owen and I were picking up medication refills. For a second, all three of us stood there awkwardly under the fluorescent lights, surrounded by greeting cards and cold medicine displays. Then Naomi smiled softly when she noticed I was standing without the walker. "You look stronger," she said. "Getting there." I answered carefully. Travis had told me about apologizing to her, but I still felt ashamed facing her myself. "You were right," I admitted after a moment. "Family scared." Naomi glanced toward Owen waiting near the checkout counter. "Most people do bad things slowly," she said quietly, usually while convincing themselves they are protecting someone. Then she touched my arm gently before leaving with her prescription bag tucked under one shoulder. That night, I sat in the garage listening to the old radio hum while Travis balanced invoices at the workbench beside me. We were both tired, older somehow than before all this happened. After a while, he cleared his throat without looking up from the paperwork. "I keep thinking about something Owen said." I waited. Travis rubbed grease from his hands with a rag. "About how I stopped talking to you like family." The silence stretched for a moment. Then he added quietly, "I think somewhere along the line, I got so focused on saving the house that I forgot the whole reason I was trying to save it." I looked around the garage slowly. The old tools. The patched workbench. Owen's backpack tossed near the radio. The sound of Melissa laughing faintly inside the house at some television show. Nothing about us was perfect now. Trust still had weak spots. Fear still showed up in unexpected ways. But families are not healed because one person gives a speech or because pain disappears. Sometimes healing is just people choosing over and over again to stay human with each other after failing badly at it before. And sitting there beside my son in the old garage, I realized that for the first time since my stroke, nobody in this family was trying to erase anybody anymore. If this story touched you in any way, please like the video and share it with someone who still believes kindness should never be mistaken for weakness. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Walter's place? Don't forget to subscribe for more emotional family dramas, stories of betrayal, quiet resilience, and the moments when dignity finally fights back.